Hey, what's up? Now, this is the review I mentioned in my previous video. It's not a movie review, it's actually a review of the comic book series Injustice. Now, those of you who are astute and actually watch my videos, you might be asking yourself, wait a minute, didn't you already do this video already? Yes and no. You see, when I did that video, it wasn't a complete series. It was in between year 3 and 4, and since I had a good 3-week gap in between the 2 years, I thought, you know what, it's a good time to just give a quick review of the first 3 years so far. And now that the series is pretty much complete, I think it's a good time to go back and actually review this series. I'm not going to give a lot of spoilers because for those of you who haven't read it, this is more my recommendation for you to read it. And I don't want to spoil so much that you just read and say, yeah, no, this is going to happen. So, all in all, like I said, I recommend this series. It's one of the best Elseworlds I've read, hands down. For those of you who don't know what Elseworlds are, they're basically DC alternate universes where certain event changes the entire timeline of that universe. It could be something that did happen in the regular DC universe, but it had a different outcome. Or it could be, hey, instead of this thing happening, it was this instead, or this person was here when they were supposed to be here instead. And it's a domino effect in a sense, or a butterfly effect if you really want to look at it that way. So, as far as the story goes, this is a prequel to the first Injustice video game. Earlier this year we had a trailer, or a teaser trailer, for the second Injustice game. So, I'm guessing that these two things are not, coincidental. And the series is pretty much finished, but there are still 2 comics that haven't come out yet. And I don't know if by the time this video is going to come out that, it's already out for one of them at least, because one is Ground Zero, which comes out this month. But I don't know if it's this week or at the end of October or what. Also, the other one is coming out in November, which is the Year 5 annual. Now, as far as annual goes, those things are kind of hit and miss. The first 2 are okay, but they don't really add too much to the story. And so, looking into year 3, my brothers and I, we were big fans of this series. We talk about it a lot, by the way. And so, when we were getting ready to read 3, we kind of thought, it's just going to be more of the same. But instead, at least half of this annual was actually really good because it filled the gap on a story, and it showed you how a certain character wasn't where you thought they would be, or where that character was. So they'll introduce some characters and then they'll be gone, and you're wondering, hey, how come that character's not around anymore? How come this and that? And this annual actually bridges the gap for that. And also, as far as annuals go, year 4 is the best because it flawlessly adds to the story and it leads perfectly into year 5. And as far as the story goes, year 5, it really needed to, that annual in year 4 needed to happen because year 4, as the story goes, is probably the weakest of the 5 because it moves away from the original intent of the story. So for those of you who don't know or haven't played the game yet, there is an event that happens, I'm not going to tell you what it is, that causes a rift between the superheroes. And you have the two leaders of that faction are Superman and Batman. That's the only spoiler I'm going to give, and that's it. And as far as if I could help it. And so, those 2 are now basically colliding against each other, and there's some really good stories. Year 1 is really good. sets up the story so well. And what's great about it is that they don't make one person the villain and one person the hero. It's kind of you see both sides of the story, but at the same time you kind of lean towards one way, but you can see the point of the other one. And I like that. I didn't want it to be just pure one person is good, one person is evil. And not to mention, as the story progresses from each volume is titled as a year. So each year that you're going through the story, you kind of see them both kind of deteriorate. And as my brothers and I will debate, there's not really a difference between the two of them for some of us, and for some there's a stark difference between the two of them that is completely, you see one side is good, one side is evil, whereas another one of us will say no, they're actually two sides of the same coin, and it's basically a thin line dividing the two of them. And that's what's great about this story, is that it could cause debate, and you kind of switch back and forth between sides at certain points. Year 4 kind of, I think, moves away from that a little bit, but Year 5 brings it back together and gives us a good story and a good conclusion to that story, and we'll see where Ground Zero and the Year 5 annual take it from there. However, I think Year 1 and Year 2 were so good and they were so interesting that Year 3 and 4 kind of had a little bit difficulty trying to match those standards. Year 3 was good. Like I said, Year 4 is probably the weakest of the 5, but Year 5 brings it back up, and it's definitely a good way to end that series. Also, Year 3, and for those of you who are not like big DC fans and know all these characters, Year 3 is where you're probably going to be kind of, who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? Who the hell is that? And so it's going to be the most confusing, but if you're a big fan of the DC comics and you know these characters, I think you're going to enjoy Year 3. Year 2 and Year 1 are probably the best. Year 4, like I said, is the weakest. Year 5 is probably better than 3, but not as good as 2 or 1. So that's just my own opinion about it. I definitely recommend reading it. And when they come out as graphic novels, maybe they'll do as separate each year as one volume. I definitely recommend getting those paperback graphic novels. Definitely get them. And if they come as one giant stack as all 5 years, including the annuals and hopefully Ground Zero, I'm hoping that if they do that, you should definitely buy that, because it's a really good story. It's definitely worth reading. As far as the future goes, I don't know what they're going to do with the second game, but I hope there's a comic that bridges the first game and the second game. I never played the first Injustice game because I didn't want any spoilers for the comic book. And maybe now that it's pretty much finished, maybe I'll rent it at some point and play it like that. But I can't recommend the game, and I can't tell you it's bad. So you're on your own on that one. This game's been out for a couple years. As far as the second game goes, I don't know if I'm going to play it yet. If they have a comic coming out that bridges Year 1 and Year 2, I might not buy it until I finish reading the comic, to be honest. So, what do you think? Have you read Injustice yet? Or will you read Injustice? Like I said, if you're a fan of the DC comics and you like the characters of Batman, Superman, and the Justice League, it's definitely a really good story to check out. Also, who's your favorite DC hero? Who's your favorite DC superhero? I don't know if I asked that yet or not. And now that we're in October, starting my next video, we're going to do some Halloween themed stuff. Here we go. So until then, later.